Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sunday. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I think we got audio. Yes, we do. All right, let's say hello to some people here in the chat today. And then I'll tell you what we got going on. Let's just have a quick peek here. We have Gary T's in the house, Dominic Versetto, Tim Postma. We got Mark L. Baker, 3DHP, my good friend Jerry Knapp. We got a Lumberjack, or Thumberjack Jack, or Thumbertack Jack. Man, that's tough to say. Rex Waldy, our good friend. Build It Basement. There's Kermit from the Build It Basement. We got Shadell 3D over in Newfoundland. John Bima up in Edmonton. We got Eric Anderson. He's coming in from Rome, Georgia today. We got SK3D, Daryl Watts from Norman, Oklahoma. We got Steven Reimer, DeWitt 3D Canada from 10 minutes away. Who else we got here? We got my good friend Richard Taylor, RT. You guys know him as RT in the chat. He is here in Calgary as well. Rob Eric 954, Brian Jackson, greetings. I haven't seen Brian on here in a long time. Brian's my good friend. He runs the Airdrie Space Science Club out in Airdrie, and he's a great teacher and does a lot of great things with kids, so I want to point him out today. Sheldon Grant, we have Ben E. Brady is here as well. Devin Bonzer. Oh wow, we got lots of people going on today. All right. So who am I? Well, if you're new here, my name is Richard, and I am a 3D printing aficionado, I guess you could call me. What do I do? Well, I 3D print a lot of stuff. I test a lot of filaments, like we're going to be talking about today. What else do I do? I build 3D printers. I help people in the community with their 3D printing issues, whether it be from hardware, software, or 3D printing materials, and I do that all for you for free. Now, that being said, if you would so choose to, you can use the super chat, you can use super stickers, you can do whatever you'd like to help support the show. And if you don't want to help us that way, just watch the show, hit that like button, subscribe, share it with your friends. That's the thing that helps out the channel a lot as well, because the more eyes we can get this information in front of, the better off we're going to be. Okay, now that I've done all my due diligence, hey, there's Local Maker MI as well. I don't think I've missed anybody today. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys, we've got 28 people watching right now, and we only have 11 likes. So let's get those likes up. My buddy was from Gambo. Gary T says. I want to talk a little bit about some channels today real quick. I'm going to be pointing out my good friend Tim over at DeWitt 3D Canada, and DeWitt is a great guy. He does a lot of Voron builds, as well as Kermit, who is a new friend and has a great little channel. I was on his live stream yesterday, and I watched his live stream and participated in the chat, and that's Build It Basement. So go and check him out, give him a like and give him a subscribe, as well as you never want to miss my good friend Jerry Knapp over at 3DHP. And he is, every week he has a round table where he talks to makers from around the world, and they talk about 3D projects, they talk about lasers, they talk about CNC, they talk about just about anything. There's a little bit of space science going on in there. It's a great community of people, and I love it. I've got the chat open over here, so I'm going to try and keep up with the chat as best that I can. So that's where we're going to go from here. Let me just make sure I got this other camera up and running. Good, I do. All right. So today, what do I want to talk about? I'm going to be taking your questions as I do each and every week, and that's what this show is about. It's called Ask for Help. And I'm going to take your questions through the chat today, and I am going to answer them to the best of my ability. I don't know everything, but I do know a few things about this hobby, and today I want to focus on filament. One of the things I get most often than anything else is why is my filament tangled? So today I want to talk about tangled filament. I want to talk about knots in filament, and I want to talk about why does filament break when we're using it. And there's a number of reasons that all of this happens. Now, the one thing I hear most often is, oh, I bought this filament from so-and-so and I've got like 5 tangles in it and blah, 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 blah. The reason I'm doing this video is not only to kind of cover those bases, but I got this idea from Nicholas over at Polymaker. He does a stream every week, and this is kind of a topic he was covering, and he doesn't get as many views as, say, our channel does. So I wanted to kind of expand on what he was doing, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about it and show you why tangles happen and how they can't happen on the actual winding. Okay, so let's take a quick peek here into our chat. And if you have a question, start it with the word question, and then I'll see it better. Dominic Versetto says, I'm hoping that you can get together with DeWitt and the guys from 3D Make It. Actually, I know all of those guys. I know Greg and David and Tim. And actually, I just talked to David this morning, and we were talking about a project that we got coming up. And I also reminded him about our Maker Fair that we're having here on May 13th and 14th at the BMO Center here in Calgary. If you're in the Calgary area, or you're up in Edmonton, or you're in Alberta, period. Maybe you want to come here from BC or from Saskatchewan or from across our southern border. Come up and check it out. We have a great little Maker Fair. We've got some great people attending this year. I can't tell you, there's a big secret, but I can't tell you who that secret is. But it will be officially announced very soon, but I can't do it on my show. I'm sworn to secrecy because I am on the committee, as well as Gary is on the committee for Maker Fair here in Calgary, and we both can't talk about it, so we're not going to. But when I can announce it, I will. So, Shadell, I worked at Weatherford for a bit, and their offshore projects. Okay. Oh, they're having a private conversations. Gary says, all my tangles have been self-induced, and we're going to talk about that. Devin wants to know, I've been looking at TPU filament online on Amazon. I see it's either, they say, soft TPU or flexible TPU. Which is the best with Capricorn Bowden tubing on an Ender 3 Pro? Well, Capricorn, let's start with the Capricorn tubing, first and foremost. There's 2 types of Capricorn tubing. There is XL, or XS, pardon me, and LS. XS is a darker blue Bowden tube. It has a smaller outer diameter and has a smaller inner diameter. So the XS is the best for flexible materials. The LS, which is the lighter of the blue and is a little bit more translucent, has the same outer and inner diameter as regular Bowden tube. Now, what makes it different than regular white Bowden tube that we've all seen is that it is made with a different type of Teflon. So materials do move smoother through that Teflon tube, but you are paying that premium for that tube. So if you're going to use flexibles like TPU or TPE or flexible PLA or anything like that, I would first and foremost make sure that you have the right Bowden tube. And XS Capricorn, the darker blue of the two, is the Capricorn tube that you'd like to use, okay? That's the one I recommend that you use if you're gonna be doing that, especially on an Ender, because you are using a Bowden setup. Secondary, you wanna make sure that you don't have too much tension on that idler gear, because if you do, all it's gonna do is spit it out the side of your extruder, and then you're just gonna end up with a big mess. So it's something to keep in mind, okay? Now, as far as what TPU would I use, I would always use TPU from, who are those guys? They are, I like the Armadillo. I actually have some here that I just recently used not too long ago. Let's bring this down here, because we're talking about filament today. This is Ninja-Tech. Ninja-Tech is probably my favorite TPU to use. Ninja-Tech is, and let me just go to another camera here so I can show you guys. We'll just go to, let's go to this camera right here. So this is Ninja-Tech Cheetah TPU, okay? This is not their regular TPU, and it's not their hardest TPU. This is kind of in the middle. It has flexibility, as you can see. It does stretch. It doesn't quite stretch as much as, say, their regular style TPU, but you do get a really nice print out of it. And it's soft enough that you can squeeze it if you're doing squeezy toys and that kind of thing. So I really like the Cheetah TPU. All right. Hopefully that answered your question. The Senska, hello, welcome to the show. He's asking, where did you get KVP filament from? I can't seem to get a Canadian supplier, and the shipping cost from the States just makes it too expensive. I actually got mine directly from KVP. The stuff that they sent me for my Voron build, which is coming up, that was sent to me directly from KVP. Now, in Canada, I don't believe there is a distributor for KVP. If I was going to use an alternate ABS, I certainly would look at using the Polymaker ABS, or I would look at using eSun's ABS Plus. I like the ABS Plus because it's very low warp. You can, to some degree, print it without an enclosure. It doesn't have quite the same smell as some of the other ABSs on the market. KVP or Keen Village Plastics ABS does have a much stronger odor. Some people find that with that material that it's not quite as consistent as it could be. I've not experienced that yet because I haven't used a lot of it. Tim has been having issues with it as well, printing with it. Sometimes it works really great, and sometimes it doesn't. We don't know if it's a printer issue or a material issue. Tim and I will be getting together to discuss that very, very soon. All right, so Build's Basement says, I'm grocery shopping, volume is off, so make sure you get some good food. Benny Brady says XS, Capricorn XS can be problematic with cheaper quality Bowden connectors. Yes, it can be because of the smaller diameter. So that's something to keep in mind. 3DHP says he uses TPU from Preline. Geraldine Ham, who is my lovely wife, question from the top. Tim Postma at the First Layer, kind sir, please explain why I need a new nozzle from what you think in case it helps others. Okay. Now, where's your face? First Layer, where's your face? My face. Oh, because my face is not here. Oh, yeah, I didn't switch back, did I? All right, there we go. You guys don't want to see my face anyway, do you? You really want to see my face? Okay, so let's talk about that. So Tim Postma posted a question. He wants to know why he might need a new nozzle for his printer. Over time, brass nozzles wear out. And depending on how long you've been running your printer, and if you run it regularly, over time, those brass nozzles will wear down. It's just the way things happen. You brush them off with a brush to get all the gunk off them over time. Maybe they're a little bit too close to the bed, so that's going to wear them down. And that can cause issues with your nozzle on your 3D printer. So my recommendation is keep an eye on your nozzle. If you do a lot of printing like I do, try and change your nozzle every 8 months to 12 months. That helps a lot. It's just regular maintenance, stuff you should be doing on your 3D printer all the time anyway. Always keep some nozzles on hand. I always try and have nozzles for my printers on hand, but some I don't. Like the Prusa, I need to get some nozzles for the Prusa. So that's something to keep in mind. Regular maintenance, and we're going to talk about regular maintenance in an upcoming video as well. But regular maintenance is one of those things that you should be doing, you know, greasing the rods or re-greasing your lead screw rods, getting all the excess material out from your printer, cleaning up the rails, all that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you do that on a regular basis. Check the condition of your bed. Make sure that over time it hasn't really changed too much in shape, things like that, and replace what you have to replace. And nozzles are just a consumable, unfortunately. They're just one of those things that over time wear out. So there you go. Dominic Versetto says, I've used Yoyi 85 ATPU on my Ender 5 with a Bowden tube, Titan extruder. Very cool. Devin Bonzer is asking, I'm looking for hard TPU. How can I tell if that I can use a rubberized spacer that doesn't sell while being clamped down to a bar of type and can same use as a handbar grip? Okay, I think I get what you're saying there. You want a tougher TPU, something that has a little bit of give, but has a lot of strength in it. Then I would recommend going with the Armadillo TPU from Ninja Tech. It's a little more expensive, but you can find it on a lot of different websites. I would search for that. That's what they recommend for things like handle grips and things like that, because it's soft enough to be comfortable in your hand, but tough enough to take a little bit of a beating over time. And the reason I recommend TPU over TPE is because TPU handles chemical wear much better as well. So the oils from your hands, salts on the road, things that, you know, your bike handles and the rubber might sit in oil off the garage, off the floor of the garage, things like that. That stuff will definitely be a benefit when you're using TPU, okay? Okay, question from Dan B says, going to update my Ender 3 clone to V6 hot end. Is it wise to upgrade to direct drive where the printer only uses a single Z lead screw? Is it wise? I would say you got nothing to lose. It's not going to affect much. Yes, you're adding some weight, and unless your wheels, the outer wheels, on that X gantry are tuned correctly, you may get a little bit of a drop when that weight goes off to the side without the lead screw. Now, that's not guaranteed, but it can happen. So my recommendation would be, before you upgrade to a full-blown extra weighted hot end, try and get a small pancake motor to replace, you know, that big honking NEMA 17 motor that you might want to be using in a direct drive. You can also use, with the proper mount, you can also use that EV or that E3D V6 hot end, just like you would normally in a Bowden setup. So you can go both ways there. Tim Postma says, when should I use PLA and when should I use polycarbonate? Or easy polycarbonate? Well, that depends on what you're printing. PLA, I use PLA for a lot of things around here. I use PLA to make, you know, tchotchkes. I use PLA to do prototyping, quick prototypes, so I can see the size and dimension. When I'm committing to going to a much higher end plastic like ABS, ASA, polycarbonate, I want to make sure that my model is correct first and that it meets all the dimensional accuracies that it needs to. And then I will commit myself to those higher priced or more or tougher plastics. That would be my recommendations. Hey, there's Golden Jaguar. Welcome, welcome, my brother from another mother. He has gray hair now. I love it. He doesn't have the big fro. He You put it all down, it looks great. It looks amazing on him. We just have to get him a better table. Because right now his table is horrible that he's trying to print on. Dominic Versetto, keep in mind that handlebar covers for bicycles are safety items. Yes, they are. But a lot of people 3D print them. So you're going to see a bunch of different filaments here on my table today. I've got tons of different filaments. Let me quickly grab a drink here. My water bottle is quickly becoming a sticker magnet. We've got Lulzbot on there, 3D Lab Tech, Fadis, my sticker, filaments.ca, a couple of Fadis stickers, some Keene Village plastics. I love putting stickers on stuff. And yeah, this is, I'm 58 years old in another couple of months. And I got to tell you, I'm like a little kid at heart when it comes to stickers. There we go. All right. Bum, 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 bum. We got Almond Baines in the house today. Okay, so let's talk about filament. Let's get into this, because this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and a lot of people say that it's happening at the factory. And while that can happen at the factory, I'll explain what does happen at the factory. It's not the winding. If we look at this roll of filament, let's go to a close-up again. All right, we're looking at this roll of filament, okay? We can see that this roll is wound very nicely, and we can see other rolls that are wound nicely as well. Now, yes, there's a little bit of nonsense going on here, but at the same token, that's because it's loosened up, okay? We can take a look at this one, for instance. This has got great winding. When filaments are wound at the factory, there is no possible way, unless somebody's not watching what they're doing, or the cardboard breaks, that there is no way that it can be tangled anywhere within this loop, okay? There's no way that it can happen. Now, how does it happen? How do we end up with, I'm not going to say a knot, but I'm going to say a tangle. Well, when we are using, and I'll talk about that in a second as well, when we're using our filament, there's a certain amount of tension that goes in to winding filament. So when filament gets loose, and we can see that we've got some looseness here, see? When it gets loose and we let go of the end, sometimes it can get underneath one or two of those loose strands. And I'm just going to do that now. And I'm going to pull that out. You know, this happens really easy when you're, when it's, when you let it go, it happens really easy, especially near the top. So this can happen, where it crosses over itself can happen at the factory if the person on the end of the line lets go after they've cut. And the reason that I say that this can't happen in the entire wind is because there's tension as it's being wound. And that tension creates those nice winds, or sometimes a messy wind. It all depends. But there's enough tension there so that this doesn't happen. So let's see what's going to happen here. Oh, look at that. You can see I'm now tangled, okay? So that's because this end went underneath. And this is going to happen. And what does that happen? How does that happen in our print? Well, how does this affect our print? Well, when this happens, it's not because it happened at the factory. It's usually our error for some reason. It's usually our error. So what we have to do to fix this is we have to find where that is. We're going to try and unwind this as much as we can. Fortunately, I know where it is, but typically we have to unwind. And the best way to unwind is try and get as much as you can off of that reel and find where that tangle is. And then we're going to look And we're going to look and see if we've got any more tangles in there. And, well, we do a little bit still, so I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to try and keep tension on this as best I can. And this is something that you should do as well. I know I can't check all of the messages right now, but just give me a second to explain this. So now I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, okay? Yeah, there's still a little bit of looseness there. I don't see any tangles. I'm just going to pull a little bit more out. So how do I wind this back up? Now I've got all this mess, right? So what you want to do is you want to hold on to that filament, use the table, and wind it back up so that you're creating a little bit of tension. You see where this hand is? This hand is going to help move that filament. And it's just winding, and I'm just doing it by hand. I'm trying to keep tension on it so that I don't get a lot of loose strands. And we're just going to keep going. Now, I'm happy with the way that's looking. Yes, in some cases it looks like it might be crossing over, but I know because I'm still holding the end here that it is not going to create a knot once again. So as I pull this, and I'm keeping an eye on how much filament I still have left, because that's very, very important. Okay? And it doesn't matter if I wrap it around the center or not and get a little bit more there. As the tension releases, it's going to loosen up a little bit, okay? So, oh, look, I've created myself a knot. And you see what I've done here? You see what I've done? Now, is that a knot or is that a kink? Well, that's a knot because somewhere along the line, and I'm going to say that this little kink happened when I got it caught underneath those wraps. So now I'm just going to try and straighten that out. And I'm going to, normally I would just go ahead and cut that off, but for the sake of today, I'm just going to keep winding it. And I got another one right here. There's another little one right there. But I want to save as much of this as I can. Okay. All right, so now I've got this much. I'm going to take it, I'm going to pull it through one of those holes on the side of the reel, nice and snug. I'm going to put it back through the reel, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a pinch, okay? So now I know that my filament is rewound. Sometimes what you'll find is that when you have that issue, it can be under 3 or 4 of these wraps. And as it starts to unwind, it's tightening up on those wraps. And then you think you fixed it, but you didn't because it's under more than just one line. So if you encounter this, try and take off as much as you can. Unravel it. I know it's a pain in the butt, but that's the only way we're going to save it. And then rewind it just like I showed you. Rewinding your filament isn't hard. It can be time consuming. It's a pain in the butt, but that is how tangles happen. They don't happen at the factory. It's very rare that they happen at the factory, and they're not going to be tangled in the middle of your roll. Okay, so let me just quickly go through here. Sheldon Grant has a question. He says, my modded longer XL1 has been having an issue having spotty, unclean top layers. I use Cura. I've tried adding more top layers. It's better, but still not right. Any suggestions? Thanks. Sheldon, when it comes to putting top layers on your printer, are you finding little holes in it, or maybe you're getting little bumps between the infill? It could be that you don't have enough infill and that you don't have enough overlap going to the edges. So what I would try to do, more layers, yeah, they can help, but they're not going to eliminate it. Check your infill settings is what I would do. The longer XL1, I'm not a huge fan of longer. But they are a printer company, and they're starting to make, they make some products, and at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do with what you have. And if you're using Cura, not always adding more top layers is going to solve your issue. Look, there's an underlying issue there. check your hot end. Make sure that your hot end doesn't have any issues as well. You may have some things that are clogging near the end. Maybe the material that you're using is causing an issue. Maybe you have to change that nozzle. These are all things that I would check. Before I start adding more material to the top, I would check the rest of the mechanical systems and just make sure that everything is good. Well, what else? I'm sure I missed some stuff here. Let me just go through. I should have queued up the oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no song. Yeah, I probably should have. Another thing I don't like is when a spool of filament is so full, it falls off the edge of the spool when printing and causes a jam. Yeah, that can happen. I've seen that on a lot of companies where they put so much material on the spool that there's barely enough room to get this through. There's barely enough room to get this through. And they're trying to maximize it. And that comes from not watching how much material is going onto a spool. Most factories have a calculation that they put in so they know exactly how many times this has got to turn to have 1 kilogram of material on it, or how many feet are being fed onto that spool to make sure that you've got 1 kilogram. And some companies aren't quite as good at that, but they're all getting better over time. So my recommendation is if you have that and you find that your roll is just so full that you take that initial wrapping off and it starts to spring and go everywhere, just cut off that few feet. It's not going to affect the amount of material too much that's on your printer. Take a couple of wraps off. It's only maybe 3 or 4 meters of material, and then save it for your 3D printing pen or use it up when you're doing a benchy or something along that line. I can't, unfortunately, I can't tell filament manufacturers how to spool their stuff, but I wish I could. But unfortunately, we can't. But yeah, I see that being a problem, and there are companies that do that. Hey, there's HVAC A to Z. Sergio, welcome, welcome. Kevin Jones, DeWitt 3D, says 100% agree. I'm using 2 kilogram spools that have that issue a lot. Can be a partial clog due to heat creep. Yes, you can get heat creep. We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's talk about why filament breaks. Okay, why do we get filament that snaps? Now, we get, and of course, none of my stuff is snapping the way that I want it to, but we get filament that snaps. Why it snaps is usually due to moisture. Now, filament manufacturing companies go through a process to dry their raw material before it even goes into the manufacture of making filament. And when they do that, they're drying out those pellets. And those pellets then go into the hopper with whatever color that they're being mixed with, and they have to go through a series of baths to get them down to the proper diameter that they need to be considered 1.75 millimeter filament or 3 millimeter filament, depending on what you're purchasing. And those baths that it go through, all of that moisture is dried off and blown off prior to it going onto the reel. So if your filament comes with moisture issues, if you feel that your filament has moisture issues, and you're going to notice that through a series of things. First and foremost, it's going to be popping. You'll hear sizzling and popping from your hot end sometimes. You may find that there's a lot of stringing on your 3D print. You may find that it's very brittle, okay, and that it snaps really easily. And of course, this is not going to do what I want it to do. But you'll find that it snaps really easily. And those are all signs of moisture. Now, manufacturers for many, many years stuck their desiccant packs in the center here to, grab any additional moisture. But a lot of manufacturers today are wrapping their reels in a cellophane prior to bagging them in that vacuum sealed bag. Now, when they do that, some now are putting that packet on the outside and then wrapping that cellophane around. Does that do any good? Sure, it does some good. But whatever moisture has been sealed in, because it wasn't properly dried or for whatever reason, whatever moisture is being sealed in, that little desiccant pack can't grab it all. It's not going to. It's just science. It's not going to. So if you find that your filament is stringing, or that it snaps really easy, that it's very brittle, or that you're hearing that sizzling and popping when it's printing, take it immediately off your 3D printer, put it into your dryer, use your filament dryer's recommended settings for whatever material you're using, whether that be PLA, PETG. ABS doesn't really have this problem so much. Almond Baines, who runs Matter 3D, he may actually interject into that, but I don't see that there is a lot of moisture issue with ABS, and there shouldn't be. It's not nearly as hydroscopic as a raw material that goes into PLA or into PETG, which are two, and nylon is also a very hydroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air. Water on top of it does nothing, literally does nothing. Moisture from the air, just like a desiccant pack pulls moisture, so does your filaments. So do certain filaments. So water on the top of them doesn't affect them. And anybody that's seen the video that Thomas has done, where he's dunked that filament into a bunch of water and then printed with it, it printed just fine. There was no issues. It's when you leave it out in a high humidity area. Let's say you're in a part of the country that has very high humidity. Here in Alberta, we have very low humidity. So as you can see, none of these are in a bag. And I don't bag a ton of my filaments. I don't put them in a dry box. I don't do any of that because I'm in such a dry climate here. Now, if I were down in California, or I was on the east coast of Canada where it is very moist, or even on the west coast of Canada where it's very moist, I would put these, I would bag them, and I would put them in a desiccant box or a dry box with some desiccant in it to keep that moisture away. But moisture is the enemy, and that's what causes your filament to snap. Now, your filament can also become brittle if you over dry it. And this is something that nobody has really talked about. I've experimented with this recently, where if you over dry it, let's say you have a roll of filament that has moisture issues, you're getting that stringing, yada, yada, yada. You put it into your filament dryer or your dehydrator or something along that line, and you're trying to get that moisture out, and you set it for 8 to 10 hours. Well, you've set it for too long, and you also want to watch the heat that you're using. There's what's called the glass transition point of these materials. When you go above that glass transition point, you are actually crystallizing this material because you're cooking it. You're literally cooking it. So, and that's what your hot end does, is it cooks it, really. So what you want to do is look at the manufacturer's recommendations. If you're not sure, go to the manufacturer of the filament and check out what the glass transition temperature is. Most filament manufacturers have that information listed on their website. In the case of PLA, you don't want to dry it over and above 50 degrees. When it comes to PETG, you don't want to over dry it. You don't want to go over, say, about 60 degrees, 55, 60 degrees. Because that will start to cook the filament. And in the case of PLA, you don't want to go much more than about 4 hours. I've never found that drying it for any longer than 4 hours makes any difference. When it comes to PETG, you only need to dry it for about 2 to 3 hours. ABS, again, only a couple of hours. You don't want to go over about 60 degrees when you're drying it if you have to. Golden Jaguar says Florida is the worst. Yeah, it has a lot of humidity and a lot of moisture in the air. So bagging your filaments can save you a lot of aggravation when you're not using them. Guys like myself, Golden Jaguar, HVAC A to Z, Ben Brady, DeWitt 3D, you know, these are all guys that are kind of in the same boat that I am, where you have a lot of filaments and you can forget to put them away. And they can sit out for a long time, and without realizing it, they've absorbed moisture from the air. And then you go to use them and you think to yourself, well, I just used that how long ago? And then you think back and, oh, that's been a while since I used that filament. Maybe I need to dry it. So always check your manufacturer's website where you're getting your filament, because they will have all the information that you need. So that's why you get brittle filament. That's why it snaps, is usually because it's got moisture in it or it's been over dried. Don't over dry your filament. I've seen people do this where they've done it for cycle after cycle after cycle. Put it in the dryer, let it go for the recommended time at the recommended temperature. If you want to be printing with it while it's drying, most filament dryers have an outlet so that you can feed it directly into your printer. So that's something that I think that everybody needs to kind of take into consideration here. Golden Jaguar says PLA absorbs a lot of moisture, ABS not so much. Yeah, ABS doesn't absorb moisture hardly at all. I know I've missed some questions here. If I have, please put them in again. DeWitt 3D is talking with Dominic. Geraldine is pointing me to a question I missed from Devin. A question about extruders. Why does Creality use the motor is the biggest and heaviest than other motors on the printer, and why does it dig into the filament sometimes to where it cannot feed? It's the way that they've designed their extruder. They use NEMA 17, I believe they're 49s. They're either 36 or 49 millimeter motors. And the bigger that number, the heavier that motor is. And I don't know why they do it, but they're getting them for low cost, so they're passing that on to you. When we buy printers like Creality, and there's nothing wrong with Creality, I'm never going to knock a Creality product because I use them myself, but they put out an inexpensive printer for a price that the masses could afford at the time, and we have to get through those quirks. And I understand that it can be a problem. It's just the design of the printer. There's nothing that you can do about it. If I were going to go to direct drive on my printer, then I would certainly move to a smaller pancake motor. Let me see if I've got something here. I know I had something here just the other day. What did I do with it? Where did I put you? I know you're around here somewhere. I know you are here. What did I do with you? Did I put you over here? Yeah, you're over here. Give me a second. All right, I'm back. I'm back. All right. I'm going to go close up again here. Up, up, up. All right, so here we go. Let's move over to this camera here. All right, so on this camera you can see that we have a pancake motor. This is a pancake motor. It's still a NEMA 17. I hope you guys can see that okay. It's a much smaller motor. This one is from LDO, but it is on a direct drive BMG clone dual extruder setup. This is being built for some upcoming videos I'm going to be doing. This is the Hero Me Generation 7 extruder, direct drive extruder and fan combo for things like the Ender 3, for things like the CR10, that sort of thing. And I'm going to be explaining how this all goes together in an upcoming video. But what I wanted to point out was this motor is not going to add a ton of weight to your Ender 3. That big honkin' motor is going to add a lot of weight. So That can be the problem. I don't know why they do it, probably because they get the other motors at a much cheaper price. And that's why they use them. The other reason that I think that they use them is because they're using it on a Bowden setup. They have to push that material over a longer distance, whereas these small pancake motors don't have to do that. Because it comes in, that feed path is right here, okay? So that's probably why they do that. Kevin Jones, I'm unfortunate to have I'm fortunate, not unfortunate. He says, I'm fortunate to have a friend with a filament manufacturing line in Windsor. Very, very cool process. Kevin, yes, I think I know that company. Benny Brady says, the more you dry PLA, the more damage you do to the internal structure of the filament. PLA also gets very brittle due to its shelf life. Ben, to some degree, that is very true. And I will say, yes, the more you dry it, the more you damage it. That's for sure. Yes, Kentucky is bad for humidity. Okay. Kevin Jones says, have used calcium chloride in the bottom of a sealed box and seems to work well. Any comments? I don't know that I have any comments on that particular topic because I've never used calcium chloride. I think it is something that will absorb moisture and keep the air dry within your box. Seeing as we talked about this week in Tangles, maybe next week we should talk about drying your filament, and I'll bust out all the stuff that I have, like a little dry box and things like that you can build at home for very inexpensively. I'll also show you a couple of different filament dryers that I have here and why I think they're worth your hard-earned money, or why they are not worth your hard-earned money, just depending on the manufacturer. Dan B, question, will there be a problem printing PLA with all metal heat break? No, absolutely not. There should not be any problem with an all metal heat break in PLA. What you do want to watch, however, is how much retraction you have. And when we start talking about retraction, if you're pulling that material too far up into the heat break where it can cool, then you can end up with a clog or a jam. And that's because that material is cooling at a faster rate than it can push it through. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's something that I would just double check when I'm slicing. Just make sure you don't have too much retraction. Remember, you're pulling on something that is molten, so it's gonna stretch, okay? So if you're using a direct drive system, I don't recommend any more than about 3 millimeters when you're 3 millimeters per second on the retraction, or 3 millimeter retraction. On a Bowden system, 6 is fine because it's over a longer distance and it's a little slower usually. So yeah, that's something. 5 or 6 would be fine on a Bowden setup. On a direct drive, 3 is probably the tops that I would go. Dan B, question, will there be a problem? Okay, I did cover that one. Print dry for sure. John Beema uses the print dry system. Okay, we'll talk about that. Tim Postman has a question. He says, which Lowellsbot tool head is better? A H175 or a M175? I would love to be able to answer that, but I don't know. The M is the all metal tool head for the Lowellsbot. Let me look into that, Tim, and I will send you an email this week on that, okay? Let me look into that. Sausage! We haven't seen sausage in a long time. Hey, if you are getting some value out of today's video, please make sure that you've hit that like button. It does go a long way to helping our metrics. If you got something and you want to support our build that we're doing in honor of our fallen friend, Peter Reynolds, who at 77 passed away on February 14th, Valentine's Day, in his sleep. I'm doing my new Voron build in honor of him. I can't thank some people enough for the help that they've done. HB 3D out of the US is sending over some stuff to help us out. We've got Build It Basement threw some extra stuff in that he had. LDO Motors, Jason from LDO Motors, KVP, they did a wonderful job. Feta sent us a hot end. I've purchased some parts for it. Tim over at DeWitt 3D has some things for me. Locally, we got 3D Lab Tech involved. They're helping out as well as a local company called Plastic Works is helping us out with some of the panels. And I got to tell you that I can't thank these people enough for all of the support that they're giving to the first layer in helping us to get this particular unit done. Originally I was gonna do it over a longer period of time, but it turned out that when I found out that Peter, who was, for some of you that don't know Peter, Peter has been with our community for roughly 3, maybe 4 years, just before the pandemic hit. I was fortunate enough to meet him. He reached out to me through YouTube. Found out that I lived in the same city as him, and I went over and I helped him with one of his printers. We became very good friends, and we spent a lot of time. I even helped him build his Voron back at the beginning of 2022. And you know, we would get together and tinker and talk and have wonderful time. And he was always on our Sunday shows. He would make it here and watch our Sunday shows. Usually he was the first one here and the last one gone. And it's unfortunate that he's not with us anymore. So I will be unveiling this printer at Maker Faire May 13th. And then we're going to put it up against Tim's P1P, DeWitt 3D's P1P. We're going to be there at Maker Faire. I hope to see you guys there, some of you guys there at least. It would be really cool to be able to say hi to you. We're going to arrange a meetup as well. I'm going to talk to Make It, 3D Make It, and DeWitt and myself and some of our other community members like Gary T, and see if we can't get together and do an afternoon where we stream to you guys and we talk about 3D printing. It'll be really cool. I really like doing stuff like that. And we're going to get this call-in show thing back up and running as well. I've got to get myself a new mixer. I sold my last one because it really wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I sold it. I got the ATEM, and now I need to get myself a new mixer. So until I get that, then the call-in portion of the show is kind of off the table. But comment old big coolers with dry beans with old rack or pan with holes can be the cheapest dry box and a handy hydrometer set inside. That's actually a really good idea. Kevin Jones says he has a 50-pound bag. Ben says he's trying out a new filament dryer this week called the Fix Dry. That's actually really cool. Tim wants to know, how come Apollo ASA can handle more grinding resistance, especially with speeds and retraction? I don't know. I haven't tested it. I'm going to have to get myself some Apollo ASA and try it out and figure out what's going on. Dominic Rossetto, I have an all-metal heat break. I retract 4 millimeters in my ending G code so I can remove the filament after the nozzle cools. That way I don't draw molten filament into the heat break. That's a great idea. That is actually a really good idea, Dominic. Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Sausage. Peter meant a lot to me, and he is sorely missed. No contest, LOL. Oh, Tim's throwing shade at me now. Tim from DeWitt 3D is throwing shade at me now. He doesn't think that the Voron's going to be able to meet the challenge of the Bamboo P1P. Yeah, I think you're right, Gary. We need to give that bamboo a real run for its money. Hey, do you guys want to stay on a little bit later? I know normally I run this thing only till about 3 o'clock. I usually only run for an hour. If you guys want to stay on a little bit longer, we can, absolutely. I got no problem with that. I can put in a little more time. Just let me know in the chat. Absolutely, let me know in the chat. With the upcoming build for Peter Reynolds, or that is in honor of Peter, T Sparky says, stay on, no problem here. HVAC says, in honor of Peter Reynolds, where was I going with this? I wanted to get that done. The build, yes, the build. I have been looking around at nights that I don't want. I was going to do live streams for them, and I still want to do live streams for them. How would you guys feel about a live stream for a couple of hours on a Saturday night? Would that work for you guys to come in and watch me build this stupid thing? It's not a stupid thing, but to build this printer. I'm going to kick things off probably this coming Saturday with how to drill and tap all of the aluminum that you're going to need, and show you what the tools are that you would need if you purchased your aluminum without being, or if you self-sourced your aluminum. When you buy them as a kit, of course, they already come drilled and tapped, but I think it's important that people understand how to drill and tap things properly. And I think that it's important that if you're going to do a self-build, whether it be a Voron or be something else that you're self-sourcing and that you've designed yourself, that it's important that you understand how this skill works. Sausage says it's Monday here. Okay, wow. More. DeWitt 3D says, Grant, yes, we're going to explain heat creep, please. Yes, we're going to talk about heat creep. Let's do that. That's because you're a shady character. Okay, I don't think I'm shady. Maybe I am. I don't know. Having fun here while that 8-month-old son's taking a nap. Okay, Devin, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. I'm finally here. Hello, everyone. You can listen now. Okay, works for me. Howdy, Build It Basement. Yes. Let's all say hi to Kermit from Build It Basement. He's doing some great work over there. He's got a very kind of cool little channel because he's built himself a little space in his basement where he's been building Vorons and discussing upgrades to Vorons, and I think he's up to 4 now. He's giving DeWitt 3D Canada a run for his money. And because DeWitt has 4 now as well. He's got the little guys, which are the Voron Zeros, 0.1 and a 0.2 maybe. And then he's got a Voron 300, and then I think he's got the Trident, if I'm not wrong. DeWitt Canada can tell me if I'm wrong. Then Build It Basement, I believe he's got 2 of the bigger ones. I could be wrong. He's going to tell us anyway. He'll tell us. And go check out his channel. Then you've got Golden Jaguar. Here's another guy who, a lot of fun to watch, man. He just laughs it up, and I love watching his stuff because he has a great time doing what he does. And just like me, I have a great time helping people with 3D printing and getting you through some of those problems. So it is something that I think you guys need to go and check out, even if you're never going to build a Voron, or you're never going to build a rat rig, or you're never going to build a self printer. Just learning about some of the stuff that these guys do will actually improve your knowledge of 3D printing. So my hat goes off to Build It Basement, Golden Jaguar 3D, DeWitt 3D Canada. I'm sure I'm missing some guys as well. I know I'm missing some guys as well. But all these guys are really good. And I've just recently discovered, like Kermit's Build It Basement, Golden Jaguar 3D, I just recently discovered his stuff. And I got to tell you that it's well worth your subscribe to their channels to go and check out what they're doing. Yeah, if you can't make it to all of their stuff, then that's fine too. So let's talk a little bit about heat creep. What is heat creep? How does it happen? Heat creep is when we don't have enough cooling and the heat from the heat block moves up and into the cold chamber of our hot end. Now, it can happen for a couple of reasons. One, it can happen because we don't have an adequate fan blowing enough air on that heat sink. Sometimes that fan doesn't turn. It could be gunked up because of little hairs that come off 3D printing that we never even see. And I've encountered this before. It just becomes gunked up and stops moving, and there's no air. So that heat's going to move up. Now, in the case of a Creality hot end, you'll notice that there's two screws there. And I've debated this with guys forever, that they have said, and this came out quite a while ago, that those two screws cause heat creep up into the area where it should be cool. And the science is, no, they do not. Because of where they enter the heat sink on a Creality 3D print head, they're too far away from the throat and where all of the material flows through. So there's no way that they can actually impede on that center tube or that throat where the filament goes through. There's absolutely no way. The science doesn't make sense for it to do that. So the only reason we get heat creep is when we don't have adequate cooling, or maybe we're trying to print something hotter than what we're supposed to be printing it. Okay, so heat creep, heat creep, there's a big difference in heat creep, yeah. Way I move in hot climates. Heat creep doesn't happen in hot climates too much. It usually has to do with inadequate cooling. So make sure you have, first of all, the right fan. If you're running a 24-volt system, you want to run a 24-volt fan. You don't want to run a 5-volt fan on a buck converter because it's just not going to push enough air. You want to run whatever fan your board says to use, and of course your power supply. So if you've got a 24-volt power supply, light bulb goes off, you want to use a 24-volt fan. Depending on the size and shape of your extruder setup or hot end setup, will determine whether you're going to use a 30-10 or a 40-10 or a 40-20. It's all going to depend, and the type of fan that you use, a ball bearing, a sleeve bearing, one that doesn't have any ball bearings. Sleeveless fans, I like double ball bearing fans because they move nicely, there's enough oil in them, and they will adequately cool, okay? Some of these ones that don't have ball bearings in them, they don't work very well, and they'll seize up very quickly, and you'll never even notice. Stock Creality fans don't last very long, Dominic Rossetto says, and I agree with that. They don't last long. So you're always good to get yourself a good set of fans. These are Windscene fans that are on this one. I like the Windscene fans. There are other fans that I like as well. Their names escape me at the moment, but heat creep can be caused from too much retraction, which I have encountered that warms up everything from hot filament. Devin, I don't want to say you're wrong, but the likelihood of that happening, that molten material with too much retraction, it's not heat creep that's happening. It's what's happening is you are getting that molten material into a cool area. So when you have too much retraction and you've got that molten material, if it goes up in that cool zone, it's going to start cooling really quickly. It's not going to heat up that tube too much because the aluminum that is around that tube is going to draw that heat away. So that heat creep typically can't happen. And then the fan on top of that usually won't make that happen. Too much retraction will cause a clog because it's cooling that material too fast. Does that make sense? I hope it did. HVAC A to Z says ball bearing fans are better. I agree. Kevin Jones says you need to pay attention to CFMs and RPMs. CFMs and RPMs, that's true, you do. CFMs, you're going to find some people have replaced their fans with Noctua fans. I want to talk about Noctua fans. While Noctua fans are great fans, don't get me wrong, they're quiet, they move a fair amount of air, but when you start getting into the much smaller ones, like the 40 millimeter size fans, the 10 millimeter size fan, or the 30 millimeter size fans, the smaller ones, they don't move quite the same air pressure that some of these other fans do, just because of the way that they're designed. They usually have less blades, so they're not moving as much air. I caution people when they want to put Noctuas on because they've seen it on the internet, or they're following somebody that is using Noctua fans and they swear by them. Noctuas are great for computers. Noctuas are great for industrial equipment. Noctuas in most cases are not great for your hot end. I'm going to state it right now. I don't believe that they're great for your hot end, and I would never put a Noctua on my hot end, yet a lot of companies now are starting to sell them because they were so popular. And don't get caught in that trap. Get yourself a good quality double ball bearing fan, which has twice the amount of ball bearings as a cheap fan, and don't get yourself a sleeveless fan. So yeah, that's my recommendation to you. And RPMs is the faster it moves. So the faster that it moves, the more air it moves. Not necessarily concentrated on where you want it to be concentrated. Always look for the number of blades that are in the fan as well. The more blades, the more air, and the better CFM that it's going to have. Okay? Question, what are the signs that you're printing too hot, SK3D? A couple of signs that will show up immediately in your print is blobbing. That can be an indication that you're printing too hot. When your layers don't look quite as uniform as you think they should be, that can be a thing of too hot. And I know I am the doctor of the temperature tower. But I am going to tell you that no matter what filament you use, whether it's TPU, ABS, PLA, make a temperature tower. You're going to find that range of temperature that is right for that material for the machine that you're using it on. Every machine is different. I don't care if you have 6 different Creality machines, or you have a Creality, you've got an Anycubic, you've got a Wanhao, it doesn't matter. The temperature is not going to work the same on all of these printers. Environments are very different, setups are very different. The way that the board reads temperature is very different. So, in order to avoid that, if you take your filament and you're going to put it onto a new printer that you've never used that filament on, take the time. It doesn't take all that much time. It maybe takes an hour and a half. Print yourself a temperature tower. Find out what temperature is best for that material. And the best way to print a temperature tower, and the easiest and best way, is to download Matter Control from the Matter Hackers website. It's free. There's a ton of different printers that you can set up in the Matter Control, Matter Hackers software. It's a slicer just like any other. I have to use different slicers all the time. So I've got Super Slicer, I've got Prusa Slicer, I've got Cura, I've got Simplify 3D. What else do I have on there? I've got Idea Maker. You name it, I probably have it. If If it's a free slicer that people are using, I probably have it here and I probably used it. What are my favorite slicers? Well, that's a whole nother topic. And we'll get into that at another time. Yeah, Build It Basement says, Knox usually spins slow. Slow equals poor performance. Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe that's the problem. The Noctua, I love quiet though. Yeah, it could be, Sheldon. Could very well be. John says, we found Noctua cause issues like clogs. That's because they're not moving enough air, John. They just don't cool things hot enough. Or, yeah, they just don't cool things adequately enough. Gary wants to put one on. Ben Sunan fans are great. He likes those ones. E3D 3010 fans are 13,000 RPM and 5.10 CFM. Ordered one with the same RPM, but CFM was only 2.9. Big difference. Yeah, there's a huge difference there. Downloading matter control now. CFM is also a function of blade pitch and number of blades. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. It may have the same number of blades, but CFM isn't the same. Just be cautious. Yes, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And make sure that you do a PID tune for each printer, especially if you change your hot end components. Yeah, that's a good point, Ben. PID tuning, it's very easy to do. Most of the slicers that are out there now will allow you to do a PID tune. If not, there's Pronterface. If you're not familiar with Pronterface, maybe I should do an episode on showing you guys how to PID tune a hot end. I'm gonna have to do it with this guy when I put him on the Ender. And the Ender, for all intent and purposes, the Ender for me is a printer that is just there for me to kit bash and do things like this on and experiment with. There's other printers I don't want to touch just because I like the way that they print and I don't want to mess them up. So the Ender, we're going to put this on the Ender, and I will be doing a PID tune. When we do the Voron, we're going to also have to do a PID tune on that one as well. John says, I know I was agreeing, plus people use much, much larger than they should, yes. DeWitt says, speaking of heat creep, when I was new to 3D printing, I would make the mistake of shutting off my printer without letting the hot end cool down first, caused heat creep and clogs. Hey, there's Jose Ferreira. Hello, Jose. We stayed on a little longer just for you today, Jose. So there you go. What I want to say about heat creep, and DeWitt makes a very good point there, that it's not, again, it's not heat creep, it's just cooling way too fast higher up in the throat of that chamber. And it can be a real issue for people. I have to look over here to see what camera I'm on. It can be a real issue when it does that. And by shutting off your printer too early, yes, you can have that problem. So if you're going to turn off your printer, when you turn it back on, preheat your hot end. Preheat your bed while you're slicing up your model. Just let them preheat, let them come to temperature. Because what happens with your hot end and your bed is that they're in movement because they're expanding from the heat. When that reaches its optimum temperature, whether that be 210, 205, whatever it is, and your bed being 60 degrees, let's say, you want to leave them alone for a minute. You want to let them stop that movement. Let them acclimate to that temperature that they're supposed to be at. Now, another thing that's going to certainly help you in your 3D printing is make sure that you put a sock, a rubber or a silicone sock on your hot end's heat block. What I've discovered recently, and this is not a phenomenon, but this is a fact, is that when these fans, when your part cooling fan kicks in, it can cause what's called shock, heat shock. to that block, which can drop that temperature by as much as 5 degrees. And then it has to work to get back up to that optimum temperature. So having a silicone sock prevents that from happening. It's only going to cool down the tip a little bit. So Build It Basement is saying, how did I know that there was a simple CAD and slicer in one software? I'm going to play with this. Simple CAD, yeah, that Matter Control has had that feature for a long time. And again, it's free. Download it, try it out. Hey, there's Teza. Hello, Teza. Shadell is saying hi to everybody. I missed something that DeWitt said. Speaking of heat creep, blah, 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 caused heat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that today, for those guys that just showed up, we were talking a little bit about why we get tangles in our filament, how it happens. And it's impossible for it to happen at the factory. I stand by that statement 100%. If you don't believe me, go and check out Nero 3D's channel. He did a walkthrough of printed solids filament manufacturing area, and they discussed that a little bit. And Dave from Printed Solid actually explains why we get tangles a little bit. And it can't happen because of the way that filament is wound. So if you missed what I was saying and the demonstration I showed and how to get it untangled, then I would recommend that you go back over to, or go over there, or go back and watch the replay of this. The replays go up just about an hour after every one shuts down. So if you guys have questions, ask them. If you want to hit us up with a super chat, that would always be helpful as well. I don't like saying that too much. You guys hardly ever see me say that. But if you are new here, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because that helps out a lot as well. You don't have to open up your wallet to me. But by hitting that subscribe and that like button, and maybe leaving a comment after the stream is over, that also helps, because it helps us get in front of other people. So people that may need the help that this show offers. So Shadell 3D, I'm waiting for my bottle of Screech, just so you know. That's a joke that we had running over on DeWitt 3D's channel the other night. We were talking a little bit about Screech. And for anybody that is unfamiliar with what Screech is, it can be used as paint remover in some instances, depending on where you got it from. But it is a very strong alcohol that is usually made on the East Coast in Newfoundland. For those of you that aren't in Canada, which is on the East Coast. It is a very powerful libation and should be consumed with caution. That's all I'm going to say about it. Gary T, I could go for a Black Horse right now. I could go for a Jack Daniels right now myself. So I'm a Jack Daniels guy for anybody that doesn't know. But yeah, let's talk about what's coming up. This week on Wednesday, I am going to be showing you how to put this together. This is the Hero Me version 7. This is the parts that you can freely download. They're freely available to you. And this is going to be coming up on Wednesday. I'm going to show you how to assemble this. And then we'll do a follow-up video where we put it onto the Ender 3. Archery says, hi, I asked this question last week, but had to leave early. I get anxious before and during the print process. I'm new to the hobby, but I've only done 2 prints. Does this go away with experience? Yes, Archer, it does. I'm going to tell you a little story. It's story time here on Ask for Help. When I got started in 3D printing, I would sit there and watch the print. Not due to anxiousness, but just because I found the process of that plastic laying down and building my model so fascinating. I would lose time. My wife would yell at me and go, "Are you ever coming out of that room?" And then before I know it, an hour and a half has gone by. But yes, the anxiety will go away. The more experience that you get, the more stuff that you print, the longer you print. You're going to have some anxiety at first when you start getting into much longer prints, but that's going to go away over time as your experience builds up. So yeah, it does all go away. Canadian Moonshine, Build It Basement. Yes, that is what Screech is. It's very powerful stuff. Hey, there's the Poor Boy channel. Give a shout out to the Poor Boy channel. I watched his stuff the other day and really enjoyed his channel as well. Screech is a Newfie invention. Yes, it is. Gary T says, beer that used to be brewed in Newfoundland. Was it beer originally? I don't think it was beer, was it? I could be wrong. Print's a 24-hour print. It'll go away quick, Build It Basement says. Yes, that is very true. Unless you have issues whereby you have a print failure. Then your anxiety will build for a little while till you figure out why you had a print failure and how to get over it. And that's what Ask for Help's all about, is how to get your print failures solved and how to get good prints. Yeah, failures are going to happen no matter how much experience you have. I still have failures. I have failures all the time, and I've been printing now coming up, well, it's going to be coming up on 8 years, I guess, pretty soon. To be perfectly honest with you, it's something that's just going to happen. It is, and it can happen from any number of reasons. It can happen because your nozzle is worn a little bit, or maybe there's too much buildup inside the nozzle end and you're starting to get clogs, or anything can happen. You had a power outage. That'll happen too. A brownout. For anybody that doesn't know what a brownout is, and I'm sure all you guys do know what a brownout is, it's when your lights, you can tell you've got a brownout when your lights do a little flickering. That's called a brownout. And it's just a lack of electricity getting to your house from the mains. So, what else we got going on here? Screech is one of the only things that can cut through the fog. Yes, that's very true. HVAC says, my grandkids just love when I print something for them. Yes, kids are fascinated by this. Some people may tell you that they're not, but you know, the more you get them involved, the more that they're going to want to start printing their own stuff. Ben says he's been printing almost as long as I have, and he says he still finds it fascinating to watch the printer lay down plastic, and so do I. Screech causes bad decisions, my wife says, Geraldine Ham. Hey, and thanks for stopping by yesterday. It was a blessing having you guys there with me. Poor boy, it was a joy to watch your channel. I got a lot out of it. Most alcohol does that. Dirty bed, number one reason I have failures. I keep ISO in a spray bottle and I'll wash my PEI weekly. You do have to wash your PEI weekly, that's for sure. In the sink and with dish soap. Once in a while, I lightly use a scrubber. Yeah, that helps. PEI surfaces over time can lose their adhesion. I keep a bottle of alcohol, not for drinking, but for cleaning my beds. I do take them to the sink once in a while. An adhesion promoter like glue stick, this stuff here, or what else have I got over here? I was using this just today. Magic Goo. This stuff also helps. Good adhesion product. Both products. This is your most inexpensive option. This will be a little bit more expensive, but it goes a long way. I've had this bottle now for close to 8 months, and it still looks like it's almost full. So, yeah. Shadell 3D says, only bad decisions, maybe other things as well. Yeah, well, she married me. Magic goo, yes. For the longest time, I avoided this stuff. And I've used it on occasion in the past in other videos. I mean, I've been doing videos for 5 years. There's 400 videos up on my channel, including live streams. But, a 16 ounce or 160, was that 169? No, 50 milliliters of Magic Goo goes a long way. It does, very much so. Yeah, it comes in many flavors. You can use it with, you can use it for PLA. You can get it for PEI, or you can get it for PETG, ABS, all different kinds. Just like gloop, you can now get gloop for adhering different plastics together, which is very cool. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do. So we're getting on to about 3:30. I think we're gonna kind of wrap it up here. Mark L. Baker, I want to just kind of point out Mark L. Baker here real quick before we wrap things up. Mark is somebody I met while I was, before I actually officially started working at Spool 3D back in the day. And Mark and I hit it off. I love Mark. I've been over to his house several times. He's got a great little setup there in his home for 3D printing. And Mark has been with this channel since pretty close to when I started. It wasn't too long after I started the channel that Mark L. Baker came on and has always been a supporter. And I can't thank him enough for all the support that he's given this channel, just even by showing up. And the same thing goes for everybody here, just by showing up and giving us a like and participating in the chat. It goes a long way to helping this channel. And it goes a long way to helping other channels that you guys may be looking at, like Build It Basement and DeWitt 3D and Golden Jaguar and, HVAC A to Z as well. He's got a little channel that he does some stuff on from time to time. The Poor Boy channel. All these guys can benefit from you going over and just participating. Ask a question. Find out what they're doing. Ask a question. It helps everybody. I know I'm not going to be here forever. I'm going to keep the show going as long as you guys want me to keep the show going, in terms of, not the length today, but the length overall. I'm going to keep producing content till I physically can't produce content anymore. So, but yeah, Mark L. Baker is somebody I feel very close to as well. So I haven't seen him in a long time, and that's unfortunate. I do want to get together with Mark because I really like his company, and it's always fun to hang out with him. So maybe we'll all have to get together. Gary T, Mark L. Baker, DeWitt 3D, our friends Dave Harmon and Greg over at 3D Make It, and a few other guys will get together and we'll do something. Yeah, there we go. Gary T's putting in some links to other channels. I know some of you guys can't put your own links in, and I apologize for that, but we had to turn that off because we were getting spammed. So only moderators can put links in. So so DeWitt can put links in and things like that. But yeah, go check out these other channels. Give them a little bit of a follow. And I'm going to see you guys Saturday night well, first you're going to see Wednesday with a new episode on this. And then Saturday night, we're going to start our Voron build. We got some things coming in. I don't know that they'll be in this week, but they'll probably be in next week. We're going to get started on Saturday night with our build of the Voron. We're going to start by drilling and tapping all of our aluminum. And I'll let you guys know. I'll post as to what time that'll be. And I will be streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. So please make sure that depending on what platform you guys are in, come over and check it out. Hang out with me. We'll talk a little bit about the tools that I'm using, and I'll show you exactly the process I go through. And I'll share with you a little thing that I made to make sure that you get your holes drilled in the right place. So until I see you guys next time, please remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. And I will see you guys live on Saturday night, both here on YouTube and on Twitch. So have yourselves a great week. I hope that you do well and keep printing, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. All right, have yourselves a great rest of a Sunday. And we'll see DeWitt at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is in an hour and a half from now. 1 hour and 30 minutes, DeWitt will be on. So make sure you check out DeWitt 3D. All right, so until I see you guys, bye.